session to order. And at this time, I'd like to call on Commissioner Dodson, if he would, to lead us in an invocation and pledge of allegiance, please.
Let's pray. Lord, we just thank you for this beautiful day today, Lord, and thank you for the many blessings that you bring our way, Lord, and forgive us of our shortcomings, Father, if we're not perfect. And Lord, we just ask that you be with each one of us tonight and lead, guide, and direct us as we go about the business of budgeting for this county, Lord. So I just ask you that you bless this meeting. We'll pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Dodson. Okay, the first item on our agenda tonight is a presentation of fiscal year 2017-2018, the County Fire District's budget. And Mayor Donald Andrews is going to present that. And just to remind the board, he has someplace else he needs to be tonight with his own board. So if we could kind of keep that in mind as we move through this. Thank you for graciously being here tonight.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you for allowing me to come before you this evening. I would also like to thank the County Manager for allowing me to present the Fire Department budgets ahead of his presentation for the county's budget. And as Chair Lady mentioned, I do have a bit of a scheduling conflict. The county we're always presenting their budget at 7 this evening, so I kind of have to be at that. So I'll try to be brief as possible, but hopefully you've received a copy of the budget recommendations and the accompanying worksheet from the Fire Advisory Board. And I laid on your spots a corrected version without the typos that was emailed out, and we didn't catch the typos, so the typos have been corrected and the spacing is somewhat better. So has become the Fire Advisory Board's process. We meet to review the budget from each of the county fire departments. We go through the budget request and develop a list of questions or items that need further explanation or some concerns about a trend that we're seeing that we would like to discuss with the fire department. And then that list of questions is sent to the fire department so that they can prepare. And on May the 9th, members of the Fire Advisory Board met with representatives from each of the county fire department. And as a group, we reviewed the questions and concerns. For the most part, there are no major changes to the budgets or to the fire district tax rates, which is good news. Just a couple of slight changes. So if you allow me, I'll kind of hit some of the highlights and then answer any questions. So we'll start out with Cape Fear Fire Department. Their budget request increased by $18,620. Most of that increase relates to personnel. The department is increasing their hourly rate from $12.50 an hour to $13. And the department is also in the process of funding a full-time position. They're going to do it over a 3-year period of time to work towards it. So this is the first year of trying to work towards a full-time position. The other items in their budget that increased was for turnout gear and pagers. The cost of turnout gear continues to go up. Instead of turnout gear, it's about $2,000 now. And if you've seen TV in the last few days, you saw the guy that got under the canopy. Well, that turnout gear works. I don't know who makes their gear, but they got a great commercial now. So, but the cost of gear is going up every year, and so they had been getting about 4 or 5 sets, and with the cost, they dropped back, and so they're trying to adjust to that. The other thing is their pagers and radios. They're on a 10-year cycle to replace their gear and their pagers with their membership. So they did see some growth in their tax base, about $16 million, but that was not enough to totally cover their budget increase. And they currently have a rate of 10 cents per 100,000. The projected fire tax rate with the budget as presented would go to 10.2, which is equivalent to about $2 per 100,000. They haven't changed their tax rate since 2013. Like I say, they just didn't have enough growth to offset the increase of the 18,000. Skipping to the next department, which is Carolina Trace Fire Department. Their budget increased by $23,631. The department is requesting to increase personnel costs by $26,881 to add more personnel. Back in 2013, the department was approved to increase from 80 hours to 120 hours a week of staffing. And one of the reasons was to provide staffing Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So when we met with the representatives from Carolina Trace Fire Department, they indicated the reason they were requesting more personnel was to provide additional coverage from the period of 5 p.m. until 8 p.m. Monday through Friday because of the high volume of traffic accidents out on Highway 87. And when we kind of look at the employee salary breakdown, they're showing 5 different levels of part-time staffing. And we tried to calculate that out, how that would work out. And it comes out to be a little over 4 full-time equivalent. So it'd be 4 people there. And the Fire Advisory Board looked at what the other departments are doing in the county. The majority of the departments are on 80 hours, with the exception of Northview that also is at 120 hours. Like I said, we had recommended they go to 120 hours back in 2013. So there was a lot of discussion with the Fire Advisory Board, trying to, like I said, get a handle on what was going on. And after much conversation, deliberation, calculations, the Fire Advisory Board is recommending, instead of the additional funding for personnel, to do a 2.5% cost of living adjustment for the current staff. The department's original budget request was $394,507. With the recommended 2.5% change in personnel costs, the budget would be $370,350. The original budget would have pushed their rate from 9.7 to 10.3, but if we go with the recommendations from the Fire Advisory Board and only do a 2.5% cost of living, their rate would remain at 9.7.
Were they okay with that?
We haven't heard anything back from them. We met with this deputy chief, their treasurer, and 2 board members. And like I said, when we tried to get a handle on what they were doing and what they were justifying, the Fire Advisory Board just didn't feel comfortable bumping up to the equivalent of 4 full-time people. Like I say, they're already at 120 hours, which the selling point on that was to go from 7A to 7P Monday through Friday. And their argument was, well, we want to cover from, which led us to believe they're not covering until 7P, if they're wanting to cover from 5P to 8P Monday through Friday. So it was, kind of, we had a hard time with it. It wasn't something that the Fire Advisory Board took lightly. It was, like I said, it was a lot of discussion. We started meeting at 6, and for Fire Advisory Board meeting, we met till 9 o'clock, and the majority of it was spent on Carolina Trace. But these recommendations were unanimous by the Fire Advisory Board. Everybody that was in attendance there voted to make this recommendation. Deep River Fire Department's budget increased by $9,433. The department is increasing personnel costs by 2.5% for cost of living adjustment. The department has requested funding so that they can provide physicals for their members. This is one of the things we have been kind of pushing all the departments to do as soon as they could, and they just have not been in that position for many years, but they're going to try to do that this year, which is one of the recommendations of the NFPA, that all departments provide physicals for their members. And if you'll know, over the past few years when we've come before you, Deep River has a budget. They come back and cut their budget in order to keep the fire tax rate from going up. And they'll take it out of turnout gear or capital improvements or something to keep it from going up. And one of the things that's really been affected was turnout gear, because they kept cutting and not replacing turnout gear. So this year they are putting in for a grant to replace turnout gear to get back on the cycle. The life of turnout gear is about 10 years. They've skipped 3 or 4 years, so they're behind. So their goal is, if they get the state grant, which is a 50-50 grant, plus the money they put in, they can replace, I think he said, about 20 sets is what they're hoping. But if they don't get the grant, then they can get about 10 sets. But their tax district, and we were excited to report, grew by $26 million. The growth of the airport, the growth of the new development. So this was much needed growth in their tax base, and it will allow them to covered the $9,433 cost in their increase in their budget and remain at 12.5 cents this coming year. So no change in their tax rate. We're excited with things we see going on at Deep River, talking with their president, their chief. They've met several times with the folks, the airport director, and I think there's good communication there, and that goes kind of hand in hand, that that'll help the airport and vice versa. So we're really encouraged that they've created some lines of communication between the airport and them. So we're really excited about what's going on with the Deep River area. And they got a new chief. Jacob's been the chief since January. Larry retired after, I don't know, 10, 20 years, however long Larry was there. Lemon Springs Fire Department, budget increased by $6,600. The biggest thing there was helping costs. They have 2 full-time people. They use 80 hours. They use 2 full-time people to do that, cover that Monday through Friday time period during the day. Their health insurance, they provide that to their 2 employees, and the cost of it, as we all know, is going up. So they're really trying to play catch up. They're hoping that what they put in their budget this year covers what the increase will be. They have a little bit of growth in their tax base of about $7 million, which was more than enough. Their collection rate probably continues to improve. I remember when we started, they took over the Cameron district, and they were in the upper 80s, and now they're somewhere in the 97 range. So the motor vehicle thing has really helped several of the districts. So their rate will not change. It will remain 9.6 also for the coming year. Northview Fire Department's budget increased by about $7,173. Again, the big driver there is a 2% cost of living for their paid people. As I mentioned, they have 120 hours. So what they do, they have a full-time person, and then they use the other 80 hours for using part-time staff to cover Monday through Friday. They also have put some money in their capital reserves. They have a 1993 pumper that they're hoping to replace in the near future. As things continue to go. Their tax base grew by $33 million this year. So again, even with the increase in the budget, their rate will remain the same at 8.7. Northwest Pocket Fire Department's budget increased by $4,305. They're providing a 3% cost of living adjustment for their paid staff. They use part-time folks. They're also putting some money in their capital reserves to address an issue with the floor. They have a moisture coming to the surface, and so they've done part of the station, but are working towards doing the other part. Last year they spent some funds on the substation, replacing the heat and air, but they had a modest growth of about $4 million this year. So that was more than enough to absorb the increase in our budget and remain at 14.5 cents this year. Tramway Fire Department budget increased by $17,192. They're giving their paid staff a 2.4% cost of living adjustment. They're also replacing all the computers in the station itself, which they increased that line item, and they've increased the cost for turnout gear, again for the cost in price increase in turnout gear. Their tax base grew by about $9 million, but kind of like Cape Fear, it was not quite enough to offset the increase in the budget. So their current tax rate is 8.9. With the proposed budget, it would go to 9.3, which is about $4 per 100,000. And like Cape Fear, they haven't had a tax, their rate hadn't changed since 2013. I didn't address Clearwater in the cover letter. I know the chairlady asked me about it. There's no changes there. The rate will remain 18.7. It's not really a budget to address, but the arrangement with the CD remains the same, and there was a little bit of growth over there, but their rate would remain 18.7. So as I mentioned, on the 9th, we met with the representatives from the fire department. A lot of good conversation, a lot of good discussion. These recommendations were voted on by the members of the Fire Advisory Board. It was a unanimous decision to make these recommendations with the rate increase for Cape Fear, the rate increase for Tramway, and the adjustments for Carolina Trace. One of the things we did this year that I thought was worthwhile is, it's been several years, we toured all the main stations, and I think we have some new folks who have, come on the Fire Advisory Board, and David Van and Mr. Holzhauser and Mr. Baker and Commissioner Dodson. And I think it was worthwhile. It did good for the Fire Advisory Board members to see the departments, and I think the fire departments really appreciated us going out, and it was very worthwhile. So that was one of the things that we were able to accomplish over the last 2 or 3 months, that we were able to go and visit the fire department. So, I guess in conclusion, it's still, there is some increases. Anytime it goes up, nobody likes that, but at the end of the day, we feel like what we're getting from the volunteer fire departments pays for itself in our savings on their insurance. I mean, we're asking the fire departments to do more now than, it's not longer, fire calls are actually down, we're actually going to put out fires, but the calls go up because first responders, we're providing a lot of assistance to EMS with lifting, or providing a driver, or echo calls where it's a cardiac arrest. Motor vehicle accidents are up, which they do the extrication. But as we met with the fire departments, we kind of get a trend of how everybody was handling the daytime, because that's the biggest challenge that we feel like is going on, is that Monday through Friday, nobody works. When we were kind of talking to everybody, really nobody works where their fire department is anymore, very few. So having the paid staff, which has been the biggest increase, which equates to about 32% of the total budget now, is for paid staff. And like I say, with the exception of Carolina Trace and Northview, everybody's working on 80 hours either. Tramway and Living Springs have full-time people, Northwest Pocket and Cape Fear are using part-time people, Key River is using 1 full-time and the rest part-time, and then Northview and Trace are using 120 hours, and Trace is all part-time, Northview is 1 full-time and 2 part-time positions. So that's the biggest challenge, because from business hours, it's a challenge, but also that morning time is getting to be a challenge, because a lot of the volunteers that have jobs, they're leaving 5:30, 6 o'clock to go to work. The people who are coming in don't get there until 7 or 8 o'clock. So that's going to continue to be a challenge. One of the things that, if you read anything in the fire service, recruiting is a challenge to get members. Cape Fear used a Safer grant a few years back and had a member retention program, and we did a junior firefighter program, and I would say of the probably 8 people who went through it, they kept 4. So that's good. Tramway's in the process, I think they're in their 3rd year of the same type of grant to try to get folks. So it continues to be a challenge to get volunteers. That's a trend that we all need to continue to watch. And it will affect going forward, because you realize when people pick up phone, dial 911, they have no idea it's a volunteer fire department coming. They think it's paid staff, and it's not a lot of times. But we got a good fire service in Lee County. They do an excellent job on behalf of the Fire Advisory Board. Glad to make these recommendations, and I'd also like to brag on the Fire Marshal's office. Shane and Nancy and that group does a great job working with the fire service. Communication systems, I'm actually talking the Viper system is getting better. We'll hopefully be able to talk to Mutual Aid when we go to Moore County or Harnett County in the near future. So in the week. So a lot of things have happened. The fire departments work together great nowadays. So I think folks in Lee County should be proud of the volunteer fire departments. I'll be glad to try to answer any questions. You should have a copy of the spreadsheet. There was no typos in it, so it didn't change.
Are y'all still trying to buy turnout gear as a whole, or is that too complicated?
Occasionally, some departments will go in if they're buying some, but like I can speak more from what I've been talking is they'll replace 4 or 5 sets and at a time. So most of the departments are on some sort of cycle. Occasionally, You know, like, I think Lemon Springs and Cape Fear have done some stuff, or, you know, the, Cape Fear is working on a grant to replace their SCBA's, and I think them and Northview are trying to tag together to do stuff. So yeah, when the fire chiefs meet, they meet once a month. If there's an opportunity, there's about 4 different brands of turnout gear, and 3 or 4 different types of SCBA's. And the group buying, like on pagers, there's really not an advantage now. I'm sorry.
No, I was just.
Air packs.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, air packs are, they're expensive. They're probably $6,000-7,000 a set.
Oh my God.
So, that adds up real quick. The bottles have a life of 15 years. And the bottle, $1,000 a piece, and you need 2 bottles per pack. So, yeah, I bring the fire service, and that was one of the good things we felt with the fire advisory board going to visit. They could see the trucks, see the equipment, talk to the folks, and see what goes into running the fire service. It's not like it used to be when you did the chicken dinners and you raised money.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Raffle tickets for TVs.
yeah, all that. So, but like I said, I'd be glad to try to ask any questions. But there was 2 departments that will have a rate increase. Cape Fear is going up 2/10, and Tramway's going up 4/10.
Don, why do some of the people use, a few full-time, some 80 hours, 120? Is that just what works for that community, that fire department?
Yeah, because I can tell you, Lemon Springs has been full-time from the get-go, and it works for Chief Cagle. Tramway started out part-time, and Chief Holt, it was a nightmare for him trying to schedule his people, so he went to 2 full-time people. If you're talking to Chief Campbell, he has the 1 full-time person, which happens to be him. He's the paid administrator, and then he uses 80 hours of part-time people, and he uses a lot of career firefighters, folks with the CD or with Chatham County, and it seems to work for him. Cape Fear uses 5 different people. 1 works for Cary, 1 works for Chatham County, 1 works for Sanford, and 1 works at Pfizer, and 1's retired. So. Yeah, so I guess it's a preference of how, the thing with the full-time is the benefit cost. Because if you start, with Lemon Springs, their insurance is a big driver on their costs. So that's one of the things the departments look at is, if they can make it part-time, they've got enough career folks to make part-time work scheduling. And it's not always perfect. I can speak from Cape Fear standpoint. Every now and then, there's a day where everybody, the 5 people he uses to fill those 2 positions a day, is working. So there'll be this text message, they'll go out to everybody, it's like, okay, we don't have anybody on staff today, listen out. Cape Fear is fortunate because we have a lot of career firefighters, like a dozen folks on that department that are career firefighters that work shifts, but it's no rhyme or reason. It's just, like I say, someone started one way and stuck with that. I know Tramway's, Scott said that, when it was a nightmare for him trying to schedule, so he went to 2 full-time positions, and it's been a lot easier. Now, he will use a little bit of part-time just if someone's on vacation or something like that.
Is that 10-year cycle for the turnout equipment, is that the norm?
Yes, it has a life of about 10 years. That's the recommendations from the NFPA, is to replace it after 10 years. Some gear after 10 years looks brand new because it doesn't get abused, and they're not the ones on the front line. Some gear after a year looks like it's 10 years old. It just depends on the person and how active they are. But NFPA recommends 10 years. And then most of the departments are on pagers for about 5 years. Once the warranty runs out on the pager, it's actually
It stops working.
cheaper.
correctly.
Well, no, it costs half the price of the pager for just any type of repair. It's a flat fee, so you get half the price back.
But most of the departments are also on the inspection cycle every year, where they bring all the turnout gear to the department and inspect all of it. So
All of them, you'll have,
sure.
sometime during the year, they'll make you bring in your gear and get it inspected. Just make sure it's not torn or damaged.
It's not a risk.
Most of them have, through grants, have been able to buy washer and dryers, commercial washer and dryers to wash gear, because that's a whole lot easier, helps with the wear and tear than, letting the smut or the debris stay on the gear. So most of them have, been able to get a grant to help purchase that. Most of the departments now have some sort of cascade system where they can refill their own bottles. Probably 7 or 8 years ago, everybody was having to come to Central over on Hawkins to refill their bottles, and they, you know, I think West Sanford had a Cascade truck, that was it, but now everybody's tracked down. The Homeland Security grants have been good, but they're getting harder and harder. If it's anything to do with life safety, you got a good chance. The State Fire Marshal's grant, they changed the formula 2 years ago, 3 years ago. We ain't got one since. It's more heavily weighted towards the poorer counties, poorer departments. I mean, there's departments down east and out west that are struggling, especially even now after Hurricane Matthew. I mean, there was departments that were just devastated. So the grants are set up to favor them more. We got 2 or 3 departments that are chasing state fire grants, but that's a 50-50 deal up to $60,000, and you kind of look through the budget, you'll see they got 30 in there. If they don't get it, then they're going to use the 30 to buy half of what they originally had hoped.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I just want to say I appreciate your service. I think I remember from the inception of the fire board, you were the chair, and you're still the chair today. And that's dedicated service, and I know it doesn't pay a lot because I serve with the board. So,
Well, I kind of got the impression it was like,
you do.
it was like church. Once you got the job, yeah, good job at church, you can't get rid of it unless you get a higher calling, so, you know.
Well, we just want you to know how much we appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate you guys' confidence in me, and we have a good group of folks on the fire advisory board. It's a good mix, and they are dedicated. Because, like I say, we met 3 hours the other night, and it was not fun time. It was a lot of hard questions and tough decisions. Because anytime you kind of go against what a department's asking for, we wrestle with it. And like I say, our biggest thing with them was going to having 4 people there. Kind of sets a precedent that, okay, are we ready to make that jump? And when you go back and look at the history, they were already 120 to cover 7 to 7. So hopefully they can go in and figure out how to cover it. Because I know 87 is busy, but so is US 1 and 15501 and 421. And like I say, Rex are becoming more and more part of our the call volume for the fire service. That seems to be where the growth is, because it's just more traffic out there on the roads. I don't think there's a day go by that somewhere in the county that the department's not responding to a wreck. So,
Unfortunately.
and we're excited to have Commissioner Dodson. He was able to attend a few of he got to ride the Colts bus when we made our tour out in the county. So, but we have a good group of folks who serve on it. But
Well, I definitely, on behalf of the board, can reiterate Commissioner Odom's comments. Appreciate all you and your board do, and certainly our volunteer firefighters and our paid staff. We're all much safer with them. Do I have a motion to set the public hearing?
I saw the public hearing for June 5th, I believe.
Okay, all right, any discussion on that? All those in favor of setting the public hearing for the Lee County Fire District budget, June 5th, 2017, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, safe travel back to Broadway.
that's perfect timing.
I know, we tried, pretty good. Give your board our best.
Take it easy night tonight.
I know, it sounds like it. I look forward to hearing about that as well. Thank you.
We just go see how good Zach is, because he's got to cover 2 meetings. He's here, so.
Okay, so we're still under time.
No, I got a feeling he's got someone taking notes, so.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Okay, our next item on the agenda is the presentation of our fiscal year 2018 through 2022. I can't believe I'm saying those numbers. Recommended capital improvement program. And I think, Mr. Silverman, are you going to be presenting this? That's what I have in my notes. Okay. Our technology will cooperate.
It shut down. Turn this up.
Oh,
When you want me to get out of your way, is that what you're doing? I'll do whatever you want me to do. Roles reversed tonight.
Well, I can wait for it to come on.
Yeah, something's going on. There we go, yay. Okay.
I'm out of your way.
My apologies. Well, I've kind of set a tradition of leading off with a story to get the theme across, and so I just want to be brief and be to the point. You know, I went out to a nice Italian restaurant in Chapel Hill 2 weeks ago, and I ordered a $25 piece of chicken parmesan. So I was expecting, this is going somewhere, I was expecting a pretty big piece of chicken to come on my plate. And when given this piece of chicken, it turns out it's about this big. And immediately I looked at the waiter, and his response was, less is more. And I've never agreed with that statement, because very rarely is something that is small being a good thing. But when I look at this CIP compared to last year's, there are a few projects missing. The CCC buildings and the Sandley Nature Center, they're off the books. So we have less projects, but we still have a great CIP in front of us, and I'm very excited to talk to you guys about all that we have to go over.
Did very well. Great segue there with the story and
I
the.
still want to be a piece of chicken.
I do too.
I kind of want to ask.
$25, I'd be very disappointed.
I want to ask for a refund, but I didn't. I don't want to make a scene in front of my dad. So.
Well, that was the joke.
Okay. Very rarely. Well, what we're going to go over tonight is the CIP overview, the total capital that is requested for 2018-2022, and the total capital recommended by Organization for Administration, Lee County Schools, and Community Development. And finally, next steps, and if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. For the CIP, we are really interested in addressing projects that exceed $500,000, and we address them in a 5-year plan, and we allocate funds on a year-by-year basis. And our total capital requests from administration were $2,608,000. We had for education $72 million, and for community development we had $12 million, and the total of the requests was around $88 million. I'm just kind of cutting off the $339. Okay, these are just the general percentages of the requests. And this is what we're recommending to the board. For administration, we're recommending $2,608,000. For education, Lee County School System, we are recommending $37,350 million. And for community development, we're recommending $5,417,000. And the total capital requests are $45,375. And here are the percentages for our recommendations. And here's just a comparison of the requested on the left and the recommended on the right. And for administration, we're going to start in the fiscal year of 19-20. And the two projects that we have are the general services expansion building. We're going to be updating fuel storage areas, and we're also going to be having a training room for employees. That's the first project. And the second project is going to occur on the second floor of the government center. That affects Mr. Kane, and that's going to be for a new HVAC unit and also for a new room to address the contagious disease components that we've been having to work on for a while. But we are addressing the elementary school first, and that's why we've pushed some of these projects back to 19. And here's the cost and the request date and the recommended date for general services expansion. And here's just a general layout of what we're looking to address this project. And here's Government Center, second floor HVAC renovation. And this is probably the most important part of our CIP, the Lee County School section. We are currently focused on the new elementary school. We're going to be starting a site prep for 2017, and in 2018 we're going to be starting on construction. And the total cost of that is going to run around $27 million. And this is a major deal, the new elementary school, because it's going to alleviate a lot of crowding that we currently have in elementary school. And it's also going to possibly cut down the number of mobile units that we have in front of each elementary school as well. And our funding sources are from lottery proceeds, capital reserve, annual capital appropriation, and debt financing. Here's just a general photo of what the Whitver School could look like. And now these are some of the other projects that we're going to be addressing once we get the new elementary school started. We're going to have the Lee County High auditorium HVAC replacement. That's running around $2 million, and the recommended date is 2021. We're going to be having the East Lee Middle School repairs and renovations. That's about $2,500,000, and that's a recommended date of 2021. We have the same repairs and renovations occurring to Wesley Middle School as well. That's going to run at the same price as East Lee, but it's going to have a starting date of 2022. Then we have the Southern Lee High School roof replacement, which is running around $650,000, and the recommended date is 2019. And we have the BT bulletproof replacement, which is $650,000, and it's going to start 2020. And we have the Deep River roof replacement, which is the same as the previous elementary school roof replacements, but it will be recommended at 2021. And we have the same for tramway roof replacement for cost, but it's going to be recommended for 2022. And just the last component of our CIP is community development, and this is going to be addressing O.T. Sloan Park and adding some major upgrades to the area. This is being funded through part-tip grants and capital reserves, and also fund balance and debt. And the cost for O.T. Sloan Sports Complex is going to run around $12 million, and the recommended start date is 2018. And just some of the features it's going to offer is indoor courts for basketball, volleyball, and pickleball. We're going to have a gymnastics and other department offices there, and we're going to have a renovation of a swimming pool and tennis courts, and finally we're going to have 2 full-size soccer fields, and for football as well, and a picnic shelter. So these are some of the major upgrades we'll see in O.T. Sloan Park, and I think that's going to make a major difference, and that will make Mr. Payne very happy as well. And finally, these are the next steps that we're going to go through. We've had our overview tonight of the CIP, and June 6th we will have our public hearing, and on the same we'll have our adoption. June 5th, okay. June 5th, okay. Any questions?
So what is pickleball?
Mr. Payne, what is pickleball?
Just in time for a demonstration.
Pickleball
We
is
Super.
paddle tennis, played with a wiffle ball and a big paddle, kind of like playing on the beach.
It looks like an oversized ping
Ping
pong.
pong.
Yeah,
It's
that's
a
right.
little bit different.
It's a smaller court, and folks that don't have a lot of maneuverability or getting along in age, they don't have to move quite as much. It's more enjoyable.
That's cool. I don't ever heard of it.
Now, that is the O.T. Sloan work. Is that a part of the sports complex that was once being discussed? the county, city?
No, sir.
This is all independent?
This would be independent of the city.
So, are we out of the sports complex business?
I wasn't on that committee, so,
I was on the committee and I hadn't heard anything. I just know that the city had funds that they were going be required to utilize within a certain time period, and I think that concept started, but I hadn't been invited to a meeting in several months. And
Well, invite them to get in on the OT Sloan part of things. They may have some funds that they can use for recreation.
I think that may be part of where it's going to the Kiwanis Park.
Yes.
yes, their money's going to the Kiwanis Park.
I know about
Splash.
that.
But I understand what you're saying.
But please do.
Yes.
There might be some more money you don't know about.
Any other questions on the CIP?
I want to ask manager about this sequence on this. I was looking at the Southern Lee High School auditorium, and I was looking at the Lee Senior, Lee County High School auditorium. And one's, looks like it's repair out, they're spending about $2 million on the heating and whatever. But Southern Lee doesn't have an auditorium at all.
That's correct.
I just wondering, do we have those sequences wrong or what?
Well, our thinking, in that is they already have one facility, and upgrading that facility, is a lot less expensive to build than new facilities. So I'm getting ready to show you a debt financing plan for the Wicker School, and get ready to show you how difficult it's gonna be to fund the rest of the CIP, because once we do the Wicker School, we'll be out of the borrowing business for a while. So, we're trying to, sometimes, the priority of the projects, the amount of money I thought might be available through the lottery funds kind of drove what our recommendation was there. We may end up with some more lottery funds, I hope, and we also may end up with some school bond money. So some of these things, like the auditorium, may be able to get dressed quicker, depending upon what the legislature does. Yes, sir.
One quick question, and this might be for Russell. The roof for Southern, it seems like that's early to replace that. Do we have a
11
warranty?
years.
Do we have a warranty or something?
I don't know.
I mean,
Typically warranties are going to be
Well,
10 years.
10, okay.
My take is, it looks like it was metal, so I'm not sure.
That's
what
at
they have.
Stanley Middle School.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, so
Jimmy
they
Heights
have-
gone to the metal V roof design. He did that at Lee Senior,
Right.
and he did it at Stanley Middle School, but we have the flat rubberized roof at Southern Lee.
Okay, so 10 is good.
Well, that goes back to the conversation we were having, when you do value build engineer,
Mm-hmm.
you want things done cheaper, and
Pay
that's
for
an
it long.
example of cheaper.
Get what you pay for. Okay, that was just my question. When I was going over it, I just thought that was awfully soon to have to replace a roof. But,
It is on school.
yeah, okay. But I mean, if it's gotta be replaced, I mean, yeah, okay.
And well, that was another question I raised as far as, looking through, basically the warranties are expired on pretty much all the elementary schools, and it mentions leaks over and over. And, I asked the county manager, to what extent are we having to deal with leaks? And
I haven't
so-
been to those schools, so
so I don't know.
There's
Mr. Sharp
Well,
may have been in some of those schools more than I have been.
I can't tell you what the damage is, but I know water's not good for anything.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, from what I saw, we're pushing everything out over and over, and is it something that we can push out, I guess, would be my question. I guess that's more for Mr. Spivey.
Regarding the information regarding the leaks, the school board,
The
maintenance,
maintenance, Jerry Pittman would be
He's
responsible for that.
retired,
Neil,
Yeah, Chris McNeil.
Chris Neal, so. He's probably,
So when's the last time we've had an update? Anybody know that?
I'll get
The
one this week.
CIP was the, the most recent update.
I'll talk to him this week and just kind
Yeah.
of get a first-hand.
A week or a couple of weeks doesn't matter, equate to the
Right,
roof.
right, right.
Necessarily.
But if it's raining in the classroom, we need to know.
I'm sorry.
I said if it's raining in a classroom, we need to know.
Well, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Sooner rather than later.
Right.
We have a lot of wind and rain, do we have a situation where maybe the insurance could help out?
I'll talk to him.
Probably not for a metal roof. For this truck, the roof, we get insurance help. I told the guy one time, he said, that's an old roof. I said, yes, and that's an old insurance policy too. That's remember that, Doc.
Okay,
Any other questions on the CIP? I'm gonna get into this debt plan real quick, which is critical to the CIP plan, so I'm not.
so you want us to do this and then have the vote?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
No, that's fine, man.
This is the plan that we presented to the LGC staff 2 weeks ago. Michael, myself, and Lisa Mentor and Ted Cole with Davenport met to go over how we could finance the Wicker School and actually put a plan in place that we would be moving forward with to actually put before the LGC board probably November, December. So we had to meet with staff first, and we threw out 2 scenarios. One was borrowing $27.75 million just for the Wicker School, and then knowing that we had some issues in Parks and Recreation, the courthouse, administration, the health department, and that borrowing money again would be difficult. We added $5 million to it, and for a second case scenario, $32,750,000. So hopefully we won't get too complicated here, but we had 2 scenarios in each case. One was that we would have level principal, which is what we did for the community college bonds, which we're paying a flat principal amount, and then the interest on that, so your payment's always going down. And then we offered a second scenario of structured principal where we would pay less principal in the first few years, and as other bonded indebtedness comes off, we increase the principal amount, which is something the LGC frowns on. But we did it at the Lee County High School because we only borrowed the money for 15 years, and they allowed us to do it there, so we could mix that in. So we could take advantage of all that, basically 0% interest money. And so we were taking a chance here in doing this, mainly because of the tax impact. So I don't know if y'all can see that, so that's why I handed that to you a handout as well. But the first scenario here is the 20-year principal at borrowing the $27.75 million, and then this covers some of the payout principles, and then down here you see the upfront tax equivalent of this scenario, which was 2.31 cents, which is what we'd have to add to debt service. But if we were to do it in a structured way, we could lower that impact to 0.71 cents. So in the budget, I have 0.75 cents in there in the first year to go ahead and start allocating that for that. And then if we borrow $32.75 million, the upfront equivalent, if we didn't structure it, was 3.27 cents, and basically 1.36 cents if it was structured principal. And what is significant and what they discussed with us is when you don't pay as much principal down up front, number one, you pay more interest over the life of the bond, and then number two, your ability to borrow money in future years is reduced. So in this case right now, if we were, say we did the last case scenario,
where we had structured principal and borrowed 32.75 million. Just current, things, the way things are going right now, we wouldn't be able to borrow, let's just say another 20, we couldn't do another $20 million project for about 6 years. So, and if we did the level principal at the beginning, it would be more like 4 years. So you would cut 2 years off of when you could borrow again. So right now, basically what we're saying is, when we do this project, no matter really what we do here, it will be 2021, 2022 again before we can really look at when we'll be able to borrow a significant amount of money, unless we have a huge increase in our tax base, or the county commissioners were willing to raise the tax rate, which y'all said you were not. So that's why I'm explaining this. You have time to think about that. We don't really need a decision on this, but as you're looking through your CIP and you see that there are other projects that we need to do, and plus we also know there are some projects outside of the CIP that we would need to do over the courthouse. The possibility of, knowing that this will be our last time to borrow for a few years, we may want to borrow the larger amount and try to knock out some of our other projects that we need to do. So, y'all will need to think about that prioritization and as we move forward.
Any questions?
But we did get approval from staff.
Right.
Of course, it's always subject to the board of the LGC. They would allow us to do the structured principal. We have that in email back from them on Friday. So,
is that what you're recommending?
yes, sir, we're recommending that because whether we borrow the 27 million or whether we borrow the 32 million, we have about 1.2 to 1.3 million that we're going to have to cover when the school opens. So we're trying to limit that tax impact so that the growth that we're currently having covers opening the school.
So you're recommending the structured principal?
Yes, sir. And so is our financial advisor, based on what we told them. And basically what happens there is we take, we had a penny and a half of the 7.5 cent tax increase that was going to pay as you go, and we'll be allocating that to the debt for this going forward.
Half for the debt and half for operational expenses.
No, I would be recommending the whole thing to that. If we borrowed the 32.
Oh, right, okay.
If we only borrowed the 27, we would be recommending that we leave it at 0.75, and then leave the other 0.75 as pay as you go. Obviously, there's plenty of other projects that we're going to try to do pay as you go as well. So.
Okay.
Yes, and we do need a motion to hold the public hearing for the CIP on June 5th.
Motion? Okay. Any questions or discussion? Okay, the motion is to hold the public hearing on the 2018-2022 recommended CIP on June 5th, 2017 at 6 o'clock. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. And final item is the presentation of the recommended budget. Mr. Connor.
Yes, ma'am. I do have some of the staff here tonight, so if there was anything in any of the departments you wanted to ask questions about, I have them here. And Brenda's sitting up here because she's expecting a question on the new regional social services provider things that we talked about at the last meeting. So, which is kind of a scary development, but other things are scary too. So we've been working since January when we first met with the board on the budget. So I presented the manager's recommended budget to you. The 5 main goals that I used to put it together was maintaining the current property tax rate, fund the additional 1% teacher supplement, continue the investments we're making in education, which would include the community college, increase funding for economic development, and then continue to invest in the county employees. So if you go through the budget, you'll see that those 5 goals are pretty much met as we go through it. The total recommended budget is $71,072,740 with a tax rate of 79.5 cents. Here's where our revenue comes from, and as you can see each year, I would have put another pie from a couple of years ago. You know, I told you that this part of the pie keeps getting bigger and bigger, and this pie right in here gets smaller and smaller. So we're becoming more and more dependent on ad valorem taxes and the local option sales tax revenues, and we're getting less and less state and federal money to do what we're doing. That's what that shows us right there. Assessed value, tax base. I have to tell you that this growth right here is very exciting, especially for this last piece here going into next year. So when you start having this kind of sustained growth over time, shows that your county is doing pretty well. I've told a couple of my other county brethren around here that what our tax base has been doing. They were shocked because I don't think theirs is doing the same. So, and then when I show you sales tax revenues, I know they're not having those same types of growth. Our growth in sales tax revenues, as you can see here, what's happening with sales tax revenues is on par as a percentage what's happening in the bigger cities right now. So 9% sales tax growth rate in the last report that we got year on year was 11%. So February to February it grew at 11%. So as you'll notice, I did not budget 9 or 11% tax rate growth in the budget. I used a more conservative amount of 3%. I just had a hard time believing, even though it's happened 2 years in a row, that we could sustain that kind of growth, because we've never had that kind of growth. Back in the early 2000s, we grew at an average of 4%. So I was just a little leery at going anything more than 3 right now. This just shows the capital reserve funds. We were using basically all of our capital reserve funds to keep us going, and last year we dropped to almost nothing, and this year, as planned, this just shows the capital reserve funds that we put in to help us get into the community college debt service. So we had put that money aside, and then we pulled it out this year to get us started, and there's still money in there. Our fund balance history, fund balance is going up. We're anticipating this year, for the first time since I've been here, the department heads actually gave me a number that showed that our fund balance was going to increase. In previous years, they gave us a fund balance, or they gave us expenditure numbers that showed that we were going to go down. So I'm expecting a real good number, and Lisa's given me a good number. So we expect it to go up, but we're well within our stated policies of having a fund balance of 14 to 18% of our expenditures. So we're well within that, and actually I think when we show you the books in November, December, we'll probably be over 18%. So I'm real happy with that. Fund balance appropriating, you see that, you know, kind of at the lingering end of the recession, we were using a lot of fund balance to balance our budget, and we burned through some cash, and now we're down lower. And because of that use of fund balance, that's really why we're increasing fund balance. So here's the summary, our tax base. Commissioner Odom was asking me several questions before the meeting started about our growth in our tax base. It's hard not to be excited about it. $1.5, $1.6 million growth in your, or 168 million, excuse me, growth in your tax base, and that your tax revenue off of that grew almost $2 million. So that was pretty impressive. And then one penny went from $497,000 to $521,000. So that's excellent. And then our sales tax revenue is up $8 million from 12.6 to 13.6. So I must say this because I get tired of it, but I have people ask me, why is Lee County the donut hole? Why are we getting left behind? I don't understand that with those kind of numbers that we're being left behind. I think we're leading. right now in this area. And that's very impressive, and the total budget's going from 69.7 million to 71.7 million. Where does the money go? The largest piece goes to education. The next largest is health and welfare. The next largest is public safety, and then right up there is debt service. So, and then you got general government. So, but this is our big piece in education. So, you know, we started this spreadsheet several years ago to show your total commitment to education. This is the Lee County Board of Education. If you go across the top, this is current expense recommended for next year. This is the capital recommended for next year. And this is the debt service amount that's allocated to the K-12 Lee County school system. So for the total in our budget for the Lee County Board of Education is $25,897,000, or 36% of the total $71 million budget. So here's the Lee County current expense and capital outlay funding. As you can see, we were up, then down, then up, then down, and now we've been, you know, for basically 5 straight years, we're increasing capital outlay and current expense to the school system. Here's the community college. Sorry, those numbers down at the bottom didn't turn up real well, but the current expense is up $180,000. They requested $200,000, but not all of the new buildings will be up and operational, so we cut that a little bit, and their capital is up $89,000. So. And then the civic center expenditures are down slightly, mainly because they won't be operating as much this year because of the renovations that are going to be taking place. So kind of a moving target in the CCCC. So here's their current expense funding. As you can see, we're really ramping it up at the community college. So for county government, the key expenditures that you would notice in there's the 2% COLA for the employees. Our health insurance costs increased by 5%, which, you know, we have been running along at about a 0% the last few years. Well, actually, last year we were down 5%, so this year we're up 5%. Over the last 5 years, it's basically like 0.8% that we're up. And I would ramp that. I would compare that to any health insurance plan. I've heard of some people in the 30% this year for their increase, so very thankful that our employees are taking advantage of the health wellness plans that we have going on. These were the requested new positions: Community and Government Relations Manager, IT Telecom Systems Engineer, Public Safety IT Systems Engineer, Foreign Language Interpreter, Outreach Specialist, and a Social Worker 2. Had a lot of pay classification changes too, that we were able to avoid some of these new positions, and ended up just recommending 2 new positions: the Community and Government Relations Manager and the Public Safety IT Systems Engineer. Really felt with the IT, he's been requesting this person or people for 4 or 5 years. And as we've been adding more and more technology, more and more software, more and more computers, we really need something. And we got all this, you know, we concentrated on public safety because there's 104 employees in the sheriff's department between the jail and the sheriff's department, and they are running technology heavily in their patrol vehicles and the jail and in the offices there. So they're very highly dependent on technology now, so really need somebody to help them there.
How about telling me a little bit about that first person?
Okay. The Community and Government Relations Manager was a position we talked about in January, trying to get somebody on board to help us with getting information out to the public. We have several public information officer positions in government where, like, our clerk serves in one for the Sharon Harris nuclear event, and that takes a lot of time away. We have people in senior services who do that. So we were thinking that with one person there, we could eliminate some of that time that Jennifer and some of the others are spending. That person would help us with emergencies, that kind of stuff, and then help with communication with the board. So,
Give me one example, a good example of the information for the community.
okay. One of the things we don't do a very good job with is monitoring our Facebook and Twitter and whatever else accounts that we do on social media, and this person would be responsible for all our social media, just like the city's person that does the same thing on a daily basis. So we have people that send us stuff,
the county's website, you know, saying.
and they would help update the website as well.
All right.
In the day and time we
And
live in.
how many times have you called me lately and asked me, say, hey, did you see that on Facebook? I said, I don't Facebook.
I'm on board. I know some other positions in the
So I
field.
don't think it's a bad thing that we have somebody monitoring Facebook on our behalf. So that's really what that's about.
Be doing
Of course, then, you know, that's monitoring our website, that kind of thing, be a full-time job.
Well, that person, I mean, you mentioned public information officer. I know back when we had the helicopter crash in the river, I had the privilege of, for 2 days, I escorted the public information officer to and from where the staging area was at Moore Union to the scene at the river. And that was probably one of the most educational experiences I've ever had. But to see how that person controlled everything that happened, they controlled the media, they gave them an update and told them exactly when we're going to announce X, Y, and Z. And he did that for 2 days, and it was amazing to see, you know, the advantage and the benefit that that person offered. You know, and he basically made the military look awesome, and he made the county look good on our behalf because of how he presented everything that the county was doing.
We could have used that position back in the tornado.
Yeah,
Yep.
yes,
So,
yes.
you know.
Well, and he kept the facts straight. I mean, you know, instead of all rumor and conjecture and stuff getting out, he, like you said, he had the updates for the media and stuff, so they knew what was going on when. Yeah, what's the difference? Okay.
Right. Good question, good discussion. Now I'm gonna go by departments or general departments on where the departments are headed. In general government, we're up 5.44% from last year to the upcoming year. And the two big areas, one is an elections. And I have Parker here to help me explain this today. But our voting machines are about to become decertified. And we're going to be forced to buy new voting machines and also need new handicap accessible machines as well. So this is a state mandated expense and something that we have to go forward with. So we're not the only county looking at this. Our price tag is quite a bit more than that, but for the equipment, but overall that's what elections is up. So there's also 3 elections this year.
That's correct.
And last year I think we only had 1.
Well, they mandate that we certify them. Do they send any money with that mandate?
No, sir. We used to get, what was it called?
That was a HAVA fund.
HAVA funds to help us purchase election machines, but like most grant programs, not most, a lot of grant programs that go away.
Parker, when do we have to have this purchased by?
2018 is when the electronics that we use become decertified, but we would have to conduct a test election as well. So we would hope to do that this year. But the thing is, right now, we are being offered a very nice trade-in rate because 2 states, I believe it's Alabama and Mississippi, still use the M100s exclusively. And it soon to be, they're probably going to phase those out as well. And they're just going to send them out for parts, or trading value will go down as well.
Oh, okay.
As an old fogey, I want to ask a question. Do we still use ballot boxes and voting in some areas?
Where you
In the
do?
state?
No,
Well, the ballot box is that thing you stick your piece of paper in that reads the.
I know, I'm asking in some areas, you got a, area, well, let's just use Lemon Springs, for instance, if they have a voting area down there. I know you use, I stuffed a ballot box, put a ballot in the ballot box years ago. We quit doing that altogether?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Oh, God.
We don't need electricity for that, or
That's what I'm talking
IT or
about.
anything right now.
You don't have to certify them either.
Well,
That's a problem as long as I was something like stick 10 in there.
That's-
Hey, what's wrong with that?
yeah.
And then in general services, we're up for mainly addressing building improvement projects and improving their equipment. You know, Russell runs some of the oldest vehicles in the fleet, and when they're 20, 25 years old, I think we've gotten the best we can out of them. So, you want to comment on any of your building things that you got in here?
No, well, we got a lot that needs to be done. And what I've done, usually, well, what we always do, I sit down and have a building meeting with Lisa and Mr. Clinton. We prioritize then, but these things that, and before I go forward to those meetings, I already prioritize what I feel like we need to go forward and discuss it at the good meeting. And there's still things out there, unknowns, that we don't know about, but all the ones I got listed, I feel like are things we need to move forward with in this year's budget. It's where we can.
Kind of critical top priority.
Yes.
We, one of the big things is the HVAC system over at Daymar. So,
What,
you know, we're
on that particular one there too, and is we've aged out. It's amazing. I replaced that unit 25 years ago, like at 25,000. Now that unit's $135,000 because it's a special built unit. So what we decided to do, and Mr. Crum and I correct, we're gonna try to hire an engineer to come in and see if we can't reevaluate this, because if we do that, you know, we got a one-time shot, but then again, it's gonna cost you again down the road. So what we're gonna try to do this year is, instead of trying to replace the unit, we're gonna try to make it last another year. We're gonna see if we can't get an engineer to re-look at this and see if there's a cheaper way we can do it. But that's expensive.
So instead of maybe
You
getting.
get a window unit for $100.
Well,
yes, sir. And then we're repaving the bottom part.
yeah, the bottom parking lot we paving it, and that's one of the things, and I asked Mr. Dave to look at it and see, because that's his expertise. It's failing. That parking lot is, and Mr. Reeves, you were here, you know, we had that cave in on the drain, and that was in the 90s, so it's 25, 26 years past due, sure to do replacement. And, but all the items we feel like are party items. We still got things that are out there that, and things will pop up, unfortunately, in our business, things fail sometimes when they're unexpected. Hopefully none happen, but sometimes they do.
In public safety, we have a 2% increase. Main increases are to the jail, our kitchen, all kinds of things fall apart over there. So we've replacing some kitchen equipment. We're also improving the camera system in the jail and outside the courthouse. And then our medical examiner fees continue to go up. So it's one of those things that, another thing, we just get the bill, we pay it. You know, it's not something that you can sit there and negotiate anything like that. State sends you a bill, you have to pay it. So,
Before you move on,
yes, sir.
I want to go back to the air conditioning, HVAC we were talking about for Daymar.
Yes, sir.
I want to have a much clearer understanding of what Daymar is providing for us and how it actually works before we consider that particular appropriation.
Okay.
I'm just asking you to make a note so that it's not forgotten.
The note taker has made the note.
Good man.
you go, in the book, you got, EMS budgets increased by 111,000.
Yes, sir.
And 100,000 increase is attributed to a one-time grant to the hospital to
Yes, sir.
assist with the purchasing of ambulance.
Yes, sir. We discussed that at the January meeting when the president was there. You know, a lot of the equipment that they had, I think we sold to them or gave to them when it happened. So, and then I also have in the budget to approach them about doing an annual CPI increase in the future. We haven't been giving them a cost of living increase. So between the CPI and that one-time grant, I think that will help them quite a bit. And then we don't, you know, every year you can evaluate whether you want to help them, you know, further or what.
One point I want to make is I know in the fire advisory board, the presentation, and I know I've raised this point, but I want everybody to pay attention to it going forward in the next year, is the amount of time they ask for assistance from the fire service. Because I think it's a lot greater than what people realize. Every time I approach the issue.
EMS asked for assistance.
Yeah, from, and I mean, and I please don't think, I don't want to discourage that, because, you know, I'll tell everybody in here, just like I tell my mom, if you think you're having a heart attack, when you call 911, ask them to dispatch the fire department first responders, because the majority of these departments have a group of first responders that cover, they rotate, and they're gonna get there way before the ambulance does. And so I understand that, but there are other times when they feel like they're taking advantage of it.
Non-emergency
It's it's a balance in that, but I would like for them to track that over the course of a year.
I think we have started that.
I figured that.
We've started for other reasons too. We're trying to monitor the call volume better going through 911 because of the increase that came to us from the city. So we're really taking a good hard look at how the 911 center is operating, what calls are going there, and what would be better if there's a way we could direct some of those calls directly to the sheriff's office. So taking a look at that as well. So within economic and physical development, there's an increase of 16.48% or $180,000. Extension, we help them with their vehicles, and they've been getting the worst of the worst hand-me-downs for a while. They have a van that they drive children around in, but I think it's just time it is replaced. So we're replacing 2 vehicles there. Soil conservation's up 4,000. Economic development in totality is up 119,000. We have a decrease in incentives and an increase in contribution to SAGA. Human services, it's one of those years where it's hard to explain. That's why Ms. Potts is here.
Thank
And Mr. Kane is here. But we had an 11.72% decrease, but it's an in and out. And we were getting the revenue for daycare services, and then we turned right back around and had a check for it. So it was an in and out. And the state has decided they're going to pay daycare, adult and child daycare directly, which amounted to a little over $2 million. So, that's why you see that decrease. So the health department expenditures are up. Just they're a large department, and when you give a 2% raise, most of that is there. Coles expenditures are up also because of the raises, and then adding an additional vehicle, which, as you know, we get revenue on the other end. Did I do all right on the daycare thing?
Did good.
Any questions for Ms. Potts about the regional proposal, why we have her?
Yeah, you support it?
No.
I wouldn't have known that and not asked.
What, with your counterparts across the state, from what little I've talked to other commissioners, it's not looked on favorably. Well, the Directors Association gone on record to not support it.
Okay.
It was
Okay.
kind of one of those things where, you know, the Senate bill was here,
Mhm.
and nobody knew anything about it. You know, they weren't, the Directors Association were not, you know, asked to be a part of any of the planning. And, but they've met several times with the senator that, you know, introduced it. And, I think there's lots of that bill that's good.
Mhm.
The child welfare system, you know, all you have to do is follow the papers, follow social media, know that, you know, some things are broken here and there. And then there was some monitoring that started over a year ago. And, you know, we don't have access to everybody else's reports,
Mhm.
you know, other than ours. But, apparently, you know, those reviews did not go well.
Mhm.
And, and then you've got two groups. You've got Benchmark that has a lot of therapeutic foster homes, and Children's Home Society that have really pushed, saying that, you know, DSS doesn't do a good job in child welfare. So, you know, they've been there, you know, prodding the senator along. But there's lots of good stuff in it, because during this past year, when these monitoring was going on, the state developed a plan, the counties developed a plan, and so a lot of the stuff, corrective action kind of stuff, or the plans and the roadmap and all that stuff that's mentioned in that bill, came straight from the state.
Mhm.
At first, we weren't sure where the regionalization came from. We thought maybe somebody else was just trying to tag it on to the senator's bill, but evidently she's very supportive of it. We were real surprised that she did not realize that, you know, we'd had something like 4 regional offices probably up until some part, you know, the latter part of the 80s.
Mhm.
And so, you know, regionalization is not a new thing. So in one of the conferences, she seemed real surprised to know that. But what they were looking at is, you know, they had something like 30 regional offices, and they'd be tied to the congressional district. So that would be us in conjunction with Johnston, Harnett, and Lee. And, you know, historically, you know, Lee County being the smaller one, we don't really rise to the top, so we, you know, personally feel like we come under the short end of the stick on that one. But, what we learned today is that, you know, and then it got slid into the budget.
Mhm.
You know, it's a lot easier to get an amendment for, you know, a bill, and then it was actually slid into the Senate budget, you know, along with some other things. You know, what we're hearing today is that, you know, lots of the counties have been talking to the House representatives and some of the senators, you know, as well. And somebody's listening, because what we were hearing today was, you know, it would not be, you know, a part of the House's bill. So then they'd have to go and, you know, have to work on it. But this is, I think, you know, implementing a lot of those corrective action measures is a wonderful thing. But I really think somebody needs to do their homework and do some studying before you start talking about regionalization, because they, you know, they're looking at the NC FAST. The senator that introduced it thinks that NC FAST is going to be the answer to everything. Well, we've been here, and it took us 2 years for it to be the answer for food stamps. So, and we know what a mess we had, so.
And
I just
without
think,
your staff, a lot of counties would still be in a mess.
well, somebody's still in a mess.
Mhm.
But I think it just needs more research
Mhm.
and some discussion. Now, we wouldn't be in this mess right now if we had the state support. Because this monitoring, they started over a year ago.
Mhm.
It'd been 10 years since the counties had been monitored in child welfare.
Wow.
So you would, you know, if they've not been monitored, they really haven't been held accountable.
Yeah.
So, and then, you know, they're talking about regionalization and state, supervised state support and stuff like that. Well, they don't have the infrastructure that they need to be able to do this.
Mhm.
And I personally don't, you know, I don't support it.
I know when we went to see our legislative delegation, I wasn't able to talk to Senator Raven about it, but I know Representative Reeves mentioned it too. Representative Sullivan talked to him for a long time about it, and he understands. What we basically asked him was to please study it before they implement anything, so we don't have any unintended consequences and look far down the road instead of just, you know, regionalization for the sake of regionalization, based on the mental health problems that occurred with the regionalization. Any more questions for Ms. Bob? Thank you for being here. Time will tell.
Before you move on, John.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I was distracted a few minutes ago. This is way back. I have two things. One is on the structured principal plan,
Yes, sir.
the 27 million for the schools, and there was an additional 5 million. Can you tell, either one of you tell me, break down that 5 million?
It was kind of a guess on the court, on what we ended up spending at the courthouse,
Yeah.
plus getting started on maybe some of the OT Sloan projects. So it was some rounding, that kind of stuff, so, on that. But the board could sit down, prioritize, and decide what they want to do with that 5 million.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking, because there may be some things that we don't do at all, which reduces the 32 million.
Yes.
Okay, and that's the number you'd have to go back to the LGC to discuss.
They know that we're gonna end up between 27 million and 32.
All right,
So we're good.
all right.
Whatever number the board decides to go with.
All right, that takes care of that one. The other one was, go back to Saga at 119.
Well, not all of that is to Saga.
That's why I want to go back to 119.
Yes, sir. You also have 60,000 of, the second payment to the Moncure mega site,
Right.
marketing, that's in that number.
Right.
And, let's see. Then you have the 80,000 increase.
I know what the,
There was a decrease in incentives. There's gonna be, increase in rent because of the additional space at the buggy.
Mhm.
what is the distance space for?
The downstairs conference room, that, they have not been able to rent, and we're trying to rent to, they were just gonna do like rentals, for the conference room, but, they started trying to rent it to other businesses where they would go in and create office space, which would really create a problem down there. So we got with the city, agreed to rent that space, and environmental health is expanding over into there. Due to environmental health growth and building inspection growth, they need that space.
Okay. All right. Now, the $80,000 increase, what is that for?
That is for marketing and for them to add additional staff.
Did you break it out, or have they broken it out? Tell me what portion is for people, or maybe you two
I don't have to, I know it's for marketing, additional staff. I would have to break it out here.
She gave that to us back at the
I can.
January meeting.
Yeah, I want to know how many staff?
If you want.
How many staff do
One
they
person.
currently have, you know?
8, is it 8, Amos? You think
Seven.
several, 8.
You know, we talked about, Bob Joyce's job is turning into a 70 or 80 hour a week position. because he's getting so busy with people wanting to come, and then he has to have such a quick turnaround when they do those requests. And I talked with Joy last week, and you know, they just got to get him some help. You know, we don't want anything to fall through the cracks, because, you know, he just simply doesn't have the time to follow up on all the requests he's getting. And that's the main part, I think, in their staffing request. Is, you know, I mean, it would be a full-time position. And plus, you know, I think we all know and appreciate the job Bob Joyce does. He knows Lee County, you know, he has, you know, I mean, no question. And so we wanted him to be able to share his knowledge and experience and, you know,
I'm not questioning what they do, I just want to know what I'm being asked to vote on, and what portion.
I can get that detail for you.
All
I
right.
thought I had it in my, I don't know what happened to it,
All right.
Since we're on this one right here, we're looking at, just to go on with the information, a little confused on, you said here the incentives are going down.
Yes.
Incentive payouts. We were told Monday that we have 9 wins. Are more incentives coming on the docket or not coming on the docket?
I don't know how many, I don't know what those 9 wins are. I think one of them is coming on the docket. That hasn't announced yet, so I can't.
So we have wins, we don't have an announced one.
right, remember she said she's waiting on the company to be able to announce.
There's a few other ones. Do you guys know what the wins are? You guys on the board? Like the 9 wins?
I think they took that information back.
I'm sorry?
I think they took the
Yeah,
information back.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, I don't think it had it on that paper. I was wondering if they talked about it in their board meetings or something with the 9 wins. No, not here. In the board, in the Saga board meetings.
We had the project breakdowns on that paper, but,
You know, names, right?
right, just the code names from the state.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, because we got 9 wins, but we don't have an increase in incentive. That's always a good sign, but in my book, I'm just wondering if there's more going to be coming on.
But those 9 that she talked about, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but those 9 that she talked about are not ones we voted on yet, correct?
No.
Right.
No, I mean, I don't think that's necessarily correct. I think we voted on one.
Oh, that's right, you are right.
We
Yes,
voted on
yes,
one,
yes.
but I don't think the other ones have
Have-
incentives attached to them. Because I don't think they're all manufacturing, or they didn't meet the requirements for an incentive. But there's one big one
Yes.
in there
Yes. You're right.
that makes up most of the 72 million investment
Mhm.
and 140 jobs. Okay. I'm getting a nod, so.
Does that help?
Well, it's just stating, it's not like confusion. You know, we got wins, there should be names tied to those wins, and don't call them a win until we got names tied to those wins, like in my book. Secondly, she also said that we should get our notes from the gentleman on the board. I don't know if you still kept your notes or not. You still have the notes from the Saga meetings that they handed out?
Well, not minutes.
The minutes. Yeah, that's right,
Yeah,
the minutes.
not notes, but the minutes.
I do, I mean, I got them electronic.
That's one of, that's one of the things that we talked
Why don't we
about.
pass those on? Can we pass them on?
Yeah,
Distribute them?
that's one of the things that
We asked for
that Joy and I talked about, was just when you get them electronically, if you could forward them to the clerk, and then she can just forward them to all of us. Will that work? I mean,
Something.
that's, yeah.
I don't know if they get the closed meeting, so,
And she does report every month.
Every week.
Every week.
Every
And
week.
that's a good opportunity to ask any questions you have. I mean, you can ask her and she'd be glad to answer them. She's got all the information you need, I think.
Are you getting those untrained, Joyce?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the weekly
Yeah,
update.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay. Okay, yeah, I'm just making sure, because I need to follow up on that
No, no, I get
for
it.
you, because you're not getting them yet. Jennifer, you catch it. She's not getting them yet. Yeah, so, and I'm sorry, I forgot to follow up on that Thursday. Okay.
I'll get the breakdown that she had, and you'll see that, I think the request from the local agencies was $145,000. In between us and the city, we're funding $140,000. So she was excited with that number, obviously. Service. Nonprofit funding, this is always an interesting discussion every year. And this column is what is in this year's budget. This is what each one requested. We had a new group, another choice for Black Children, Inc., make a $3,000 request. That was the only new nonprofit for this year. We did have some discussion with the Friends of the Bridge over in Chatham, but they never submitted anything.
They didn't submit anything.
You didn't get anything, did you, from the?
No, I did not.
I'm looking at John.
From
the, what's the name of that bridge?
It's the Camelback.
Camelback Bridge, thank you.
But just Commissioner Hales, she has approached me a couple of times that, you know, if we would partner with them and they'd sort of do the Chatham County side and we would do the Lee County side. But, I mean, we saw her, John, about 6 weeks ago, I guess it was, at the meeting in Pittsburgh, something like that. And, okay, so evidently they didn't get their plan together.
What is the deadline for applying for a nonprofit applying, John?
It was March 31st, I believe.
March 31st?
Yes, sir.
Because I know I was approached by a nonprofit. I told them they need to, give the application to apply. So I'm sure you'll be getting one next year from them.
Well, there was $104,300 in requests. Last year we funded $34,500. I'm recommending $41,000, and the big change was in the Boys and Girls Club of Sanford, Lee County. And they continue to have their after-school transportation issues. So, actually, I think if you looked over here in the 15-16 column, I think that was the number we had in that year. So they've had some change in leadership, and I think they got it back together this year, and did talk to them about that transportation issue. There's our debt service. We say net, the expenditures are actually, over $9 million. The net is the subtraction of the QZAB rebates that we get from the federal government. So it breaks it down about, I think it's close to $800,000 a year. And it's interesting that we still get our, we're continuing to get those checks from the federal government. So I'm very excited that they follow through on their commitment. So you can see that increase for the community college debt kicking in.
When I was looking at that quarter cent sales tax, that's the one for the Lee County High School.
Yes, sir.
For the debt service.
And then it also, we applied, I was asked before, what happens when, the debt payment goes below that? We apply it to the other debt.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
So it's always going to debt. Between the quarter cent sales tax and the other sales tax that has to be reserved, it doesn't cover all of their debt payment, but it all goes to debt.
When it was first implemented, didn't it bring in something like 1.2 million, something like that to start with?
The first year, I think it was 1.5.
Yeah,
What's wrong with
4.9, 4.8, yeah, it's on 1.5 around there.
So we're doing pretty well, and when the high school's paid off, then I'm sure there'll be some discussion. I'll probably retire then. I hope. Emergency and contingency, there's a $690,000 transfer to the capital reserve. And this represents 1% of the fund, of the general fund expenditures. So there are some other things in there too that we cover. In emergency contingency, we have funds in there to cover any excess and insurance premiums that might come along during the year. You know, deductible payments, that kind of thing. And then in workers' comp, we have a reserve because in September, October, we have a wage audit done, and if we get a bill, we have funds in there to cover the bill. And then the 0.75 cents, we're going to go ahead and set aside for the future debt on the liquor school. So here's what we got coming up. We got that backwards. The public hearing will be June 5th, and budget adoption will be June 19th. So the board really needs to decide how much more they want to discuss the budget, any issues they want us to be ready to discuss, and when we want to do that. So I think Jennifer will attest that after, you know, a few meetings where we've been able to get in and out quickly, June 5th will not be that case. So we have quite a lengthy agenda building. We still have another week of folks can submit things for the June 5th agenda.
Okay.
So if you're looking to June 5th to have additional discussion, bring a pillow because we're going to be here late that night.
Yes, eat dinner before you.
Yes, that'll be one of those meetings where I definitely eat dinner beforehand. If we have a budget discussion as well, but we need to have another budget meeting. Obviously, the 12th, you know, June would be a possibility between the work session and budget adoption. It just depends on the questions that the board has. And I would encourage you to forward questions to us, and we'll be glad to answer them. So that is it.
Okay, so I guess that's, as the manager said, you know, pleasure of the board. I know for those that are new to the board, this is your first budget session, we have met with all departments before, we have met with certain departments before, we have just had another meeting like this, where we have department heads available and have discussion. Get a feel for what the board wants to do moving forward. We've got the hearing, well, we need a motion to have the hearing on June 5th. And as John said, you know, we'd like to have another meeting prior to the vote on the 19th. You know, we're kind of proposing the 12th. June 5th.
And they're going to have a board meeting and a work session?
That's up to the board.
Just depends on the amount of information everybody wants.
Right.
If we have the work session, what would we do, meet a little earlier than the 6 o'clock meeting on the 5th?
If you wanted,
Oh,
I hadn't thought about that, but you
yeah,
could do that.
that.
We could meet,
Yeah.
you know, early, we could
Could
meet at 4.
at 4 and then have the public hearing at 6 on the 5th. I did too. Or just have the public hearing and the vote on the 19th. I mean, that's the pleasure of the board.
Or you can give me your proxy and I'll take care of it.
We better not do that, Rob. Because there's, I mean, it's,
I don't see it. Do we need a work session?
Yeah, you're going to need another work session. If you don't do anything but talk about the 5 million,
yeah,
some of
that's,
these things are not necessary at the time.
Yeah, we don't have to make that decision on the 5 million until probably later in the fall. So that
because you
does
won't
not
go to
affect,
LGC till November or December on
that
that.
does not affect our
Our
budget,
budget.
annual budget.
John, has the school board, given you any indication about when they're looking
Did y'all put that
to
down
accept
there?
bids for the new school?
They wanted to accept them in November, December.
This year?
Yes, sir. And that way, that would work into our time frame to want to borrow money in January.
Which is a good time to do that.
You know, they were delayed because they had to go back through the architectural selection process, and so I don't know if we're still on that schedule right now or not. They're probably not ready to make that determination yet either until Mr. Hike gets further into it.
Okay.
Pleasure of the board.
Wow, that's, okay.
Well, why don't we talk about the contract?
The contract is on the agenda.
For
You
June
need Saga contract? It's on the June 5th agenda.
We have
For our regular meeting?
final contract.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Joy Thrash and Bob Doors will be there that night.
That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I thought that would be one of the things we talk about during the work session.
Sure, and that's what we're asking, is that,
Try to get there early, maybe.
would it work if we tried to work it out with them for them to be here like at 4 and meet with them in a work session and then go into the meeting at 6?
Yeah, when you tell me it's on the regular board agenda, I was confused. That's what I thought you were saying, but you're just saying that it can be a part of the work session.
Well, actually, we have it as part of the, we have it part of the regular agenda on the 5th, but if we need to move it to a work session, we can take it off the regular agenda and move it to
Right.
the.
I would strongly advise we put that in the work session.
I think so too. Okay, so, is there any other group, department that you want to work with or meet with in a work session? No? Okay. So, you want to make your motion for the
Well,
work?
first of all, I'm open for any time before that meeting. I think we talk about the Saga contract, maybe have those guys here early, and then we have a meeting at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
It's any time is fine on this
Start the
board.
work session at what time, 4?
If they're able to be
I
here,
don't think it's right, yeah. I might be able to make it at 4.
5?
That's doable.
5 on this time?
Okay, is that doable for you?
I still think.
Okay, sure. Okay, so we've got a motion to have
Oh, yeah.
another work session on June the 5th, beginning at 5, with representatives from Saga. And then our public hearing on the budget for that evening for our regular meeting, June 5th at 6 o'clock. Is that right? Okay. All right. Any more discussion on that? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Any other comments or questions? This is a special meeting, so we couldn't add anything to the agenda, obviously.
Well, as it relates to the contract, and I understand Commissioner Connect's timeline, it would be helpful for all of us to get our concerns on the contract duly noted to the clerk or to council, so that they might pull it together and we would have an opportunity to see what other folks felt.
Right, and I'm glad you reminded me of that, because and we'll let the attorney make sure I'm saying this correctly. You know, in our packet that was delivered with your CIP and your budget, was a copy of the contract.
Right.
And, the deadline is the 24th.
Right, Wednesday, if you have any information you'd like me to include to me by Wednesday, that way I can get what I'll do is I'll put it in the contract in like red or a different color, the proposed changes, so that way I can bring it in front of the board on June the 5th.
Now, you're gonna give it to us before then, aren't you?
Well, yeah, when it goes out with the agenda packet.
Yeah, okay.
Right, but that way it's on for
I
the
got
June
you.
5th,
Yeah.
yes.
That's
But
what
it's
we-
just on the workshop agenda.
Right. So, because when we were talking about that last week, we just felt like she needed some time to compile everything
Right.
and get it in our agenda packet before the
Right.
fifth, yeah.
And then everybody gets to see their concerns.
Mhm. And think about
And
it
we-
beforehand.
Process of elimination takes care of the rest.
Okay. Okay, so, I need one more motion.
Move to adjourn.
Okay. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you all very much. And thanks to the staff for your compilation.